Have you ever flown? I mean, really flown. I'm not talking about getting shot out of a cannon or being launched out of a trebuchet, although that would be kind of terrifying in itself. But I mean in a plane. Have you flown somewhere overseas or even in your own homeland? It's terrifying. I hate it. I hate flying. I've flown numerous times and I freaking can't stand it. It just rattles my nerves and it scares the crap out of me. I know they say flying is safer than driving in a car, but when I'm driving in a car, I have a little bit of control. I've been in numerous accidents, not my own fault, of course, and I've even been in a car that's rolled a couple times and I walked away unscathed. There's no walking away from a plane crash. You fall, you die. That's it. That's all there is to it. And that's all that goes through my head the entire time I'm flying. So that's what I want to talk about today. Not because I don't want to talk about Star Wars. I just want to break away from the norm for a little bit, break the tension. Been talking about haters in Star Wars for too long now. And I just want to break away from it and give you guys something a little bit different. A true story of me flying. Well, a couple true stories, really, of me flying. Not literally flying. I don't have wings. It's in a plane, of course. And before I get into it, I do want to announce this video's sponsors. These are people that just love the channel and wanted to be called sponsors, so I grant that. And the first one is B. Smith 5379. The second one is Chris Stansfield. And by the way, Chris, thank you for the email. I really appreciate it. And any of you can email me and ask to be a sponsor. But this is their message. Please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share the video. It really does help the channel grow. But let's get back into it. So yes, I am terrified of flying. I hate it. There aren't many things I'm afraid of in this world because I know one day I'm going to meet my demise. I just don't want it to be in a fiery ball of death. That doesn't sound pleasant. Drowning also doesn't sound pleasant, but I do know how to swim, so at least I have a little bit of control there. Like I was talking about with the cars, I have control when I drive, sort of. I don't have control over other people, but I do have control over where my car goes, so I feel a little bit safer there. My wife and I got married in 2018. Directly after our wedding, we went to the hotel to prepare for our flight to Miami the next morning to board a ship for a cruise. Now, I hadn't flown since 1994 when I was in the military. And it didn't really bother me then, but I was also just in my 20s. It seems the older I get, the worse my stomach feels about being up high. I'm having a hard time even riding roller coasters anymore. And when my wife and I go hiking with the kids or anything, if we get close to a cliff, I'm holding on to everybody's belt buckles saying, hold on, get back, you're going to fall, you're going to die. That's just how my stomach works now, and that's how everything just turns out. It sucks. I hate it. I used to be this adventurous guy that would jump out of a 2-story building on a dare. Now I can't even look out the window of a 2-story building without feeling queasy. Okay, so we are going to fly from Cincinnati to Miami. Okay, 2-hour flight, no big deal. I was actually excited about this before I got to the airport. I was all awestruck, like, oh, I get to be in one of these wonderful machines 30,000 feet in the air, and it's been so long, I can't wait, and blah, 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 until I get to the airport. We arrive at the gate after we go through TSA and all that stuff, and this is what I see. It's a freaking kite. They want me to fly on a freaking kite. Who's ever rode on something that small? I didn't even know they made planes that small for commercial use. I thought they were all private planes or something, or crop dusters or some crap like that. No, they got to put me on this tiny little thing for 2 hours. Right away, I feel my blood pressure drop. I felt lightheaded, and I could feel every one of my innards jumping up into my esophagus. Yeah, I didn't know they'd fit, but they did. And it sucked. I could feel my heartbeat in my neck. It was horrible. Yeah, and I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'4", a little bit over that. And it freaked me out. I thought, man, I'm bigger than the plane. Why don't they just shoot me out of a cannon or a trebuchet or a catapult or something toward Miami? That probably seems safer. And it's 4 a.m. So that means it's going to be dark. Okay, some people say, well, that's no big deal. You can't see the ground. You don't know how far up you are. Wrong. You are just sitting there visualizing, oh my God, I'm 30,000 feet above the ground and I can't even see when the ground's going to hit me when we fall. And my wife back then, she flew all the time. Once a year, she'd have to go to a conference for her job in Las Vegas, and she'd fly from Cincinnati to Las Vegas, no problem. And she'd always text me when she got done, hey, I landed, we're good. All right, cool, have fun, that sort of thing. And so she's this little calm person, and she's tiny. My wife's 5'1", and this plane looks like a cruise ship to her. And to me, it's a kite. And I'm freaking out, and she's trying to calm me down and everything. So finally I'm like, okay. So we're not even paying attention to our boarding passes at this moment. And we get on the plane, and then we look at our boarding passes, and we're like, oh my God, they didn't even seat us together. So now I'm really freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, what? I can't be sitting here alone in this state. This is a horrible state. And yeah, I'm full of anxiety at this point and didn't even realize I didn't want to fly until that moment. So this business dude gets on the plane, and he's starting to put his stuff in the overhead compartment and everything right next to where I'm going to be sitting. So I look at the guy and I say, okay, brother, we got two choices. One, you can sit here and that's fine, but I'm going to be holding your hand the entire time, and I'm going to be squeezing it because I'm fearful for my life. Or two, you can switch seats with my wife, and she can be the one to take the brunt of my punishment. And he just looks at me, grabs his stuff out of the overhead compartment, and switches seats with my wife. Thank God. Okay, so my wife knows I'm nervous at this point. But when I saw the plane, I need to go back a little bit. When I saw the plane, I had to go back to the lounge at 4 a.m. Yes, 4 a.m., and they were not serving alcohol. I felt like I needed to get drunk at this time, and they were not serving, and I was upset. I was like, oh no, I don't have anything to calm my nerves. So, okay, back to the plane. We get on the plane, and we sit in our seats, and she's got this little neck pillow and everything, and I'm like, how are you going to sleep? Aren't you scared? She's like, no, I'm not scared. I fly all the time. This is easy. It's like catching a bus downtown. Like, no, it's not. Buses don't fly 30,000 feet in the air. They don't fall out of the sky. It doesn't happen. So it's not like riding a bus. This isn't calming me at all. So going back to the interior of the plane, as we're sitting down, I look around and I'm like, oh my God, I can reach my arms out and touch both sides without stretching. I would have to bend my elbows just to make my arms fit. That's how tiny this thing was. It's like flying in a cigarette. Ugh. So we sit in our seats, and she's trying to calm me down and everything, and she's like, I'm going to take a nap. I'm like, a what? She's like, a nap. I'm going to go to sleep. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think that's such a good idea. Your hand is going to be numb when you wake off if it's still attached. And we're exhausted at this point because it's 4 a.m. We'd been partying all night with family and friends at our wedding reception and had a few drinks that night, and I was still feeling the effects of that, but it was not nearly enough to calm me down. But I convinced her to stay awake for the takeoff, and that was good because I was squeezing the crap out of her tiny little hand, and I don't know how she can still use it to this day. And that was 5 years ago. Now, when we sat in our seats, buckled up, and prepared for takeoff, I figured, okay, they'll be around with the drink cart any minute because it had been a long time since I'd flown, and I didn't realize that they can't roll a drink cart with the plane at an incline. I don't know. My brain wasn't working right, obviously. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, I can't even get a drink until we're at cruising altitude. What the hell? So we're taking off. I feel the G-forces, like 90 million of them going through my body while my guts are still in my esophagus. And I'm screaming, not out loud, but to myself. I'm like, ugh. And finally we get at cruising altitude, and I'm not calm at all. Yeah, the exhilaration of the takeoff was gone, but now we're 30,000 feet in the air, and I'm sure we're going to fall. Fiery, crashing, falling. Not a good idea, not a good thought. And I shouldn't be thinking these things, but I couldn't help it. I was freaking mentally challenged at that moment. So finally they're bringing the drink cart around, and the stewardess, flight attendant, what do they call them now? Flight attendants? She looks at me, she notices I'm visibly upset. I'm sweating. My face is red. She can see my guts in my throat. And she's like, here, I'm going to give you free drinks for the flight. And I was happy with that. And at the time, I thought, oh, this lady really cares about me. No, she didn't give a shit about me. She was caring about the other passengers on the plane. She didn't want me freaking them out. But I wasn't freaking anybody out. I wasn't being verbally loud or anything or animated in my movements. I was just sitting there tense. But she could see that, and I guess that's one of the signs of somebody's going to freak out and they'll have to land the plane early, which I would never cause to do that because that's selfish and immature. But I did have that selfish and immature side of me that was freaking out inside, and it was screaming at me like a little child. Why are you on this plane? What are you doing? Are you stupid? And the whole time we're at cruising altitude, the inside of my body is doing this. It's screaming in terror and pain, and there's all this chaos going on, and I just can't help myself, and I'm just sitting there tense, squeezing my wife's hand, and I look over at her, and I see this. I mean, I'm freaking out over here and squeezing the crap out of her hand. I'm pretty sure I ripped one of her fingers off, and my insides are in my throat, and my anxiety level's high, and I'm just going crazy. And this is what I get. Ah, my beautiful blushing bride who is there for me, waiting for me to calm down and relax. But I have not done so at all, not on this flight, and she's asleep. Okay, good. I'm glad she's relaxed and calm. I am not. I'm freaking out, but all is well. So the entire flight there went without a hitch. I had my 70 shots of Bacardi or something, and the stewardess, or flight attendant, I'm sorry, was very polite and very good, and the whole staff was great. Now, the one big problem I have with flying now that I realize it is that I can't see the pilots. I don't know who these people are. And if you're a pilot out there, I'm sorry if I offend you at this, but I don't know you. I don't know what your habits are. There are people on the road who do not deserve a driver's license, yet they have one. So I'm fearful that there are pilots up there that don't deserve a pilot's license if they have such a thing. And maybe they're going to do a barrel roll, or they're just going to say, hey, you know what? My life sucks. My wife just left me. I'm going to do a nosedive and take all 25 of these people with me. I fear that stuff because that's how my stupid brain works. But then we're flying over Miami, and by this time it's sun up, I got to watch the sun rise and all that, and that was kind of cool. I do like what I got to see while flying. I just didn't like the way it made me feel. So we getting ready to land in Miami, and I can see the ground coming up and coming up and coming up, and I'm getting safer and safer and safer. I feel safer. I feel good. About 100 feet up, we're safe and all's good. And I hear the wheels touch the ground, and that sound they make, and I was like, we're here. But we're still barreling down the runway at 200 and something miles an hour, and that didn't bother me because it's like driving a car. A little bit of control there. Yeah, if you crash on a runway, chances are you're not going to survive anyway. There's going to be a big flaming ball of death. But you know what? We made it. And I was safe, and it was fine, and all was good. Now, the flight back after the cruise, which, by the way, I love being on the ocean. I don't like being in the ocean, but I like being on the ocean. I love being on ships. I was in the Navy. It was fun for me. I really enjoyed it, and I'd do it again and again and again because I can swim. I can't fly. I don't have wings. But anyways, so the cruise is over. We had a blast. We had a great time. Got to see some wonderful places in Belize, the Honduras, and Mexico. And it was just amazing, an amazing time. So we get off the cruise, go back to the giant, confusing airport that is Miami. And what do I see at the gate? Yeah, it's the kite. They're going to put me back on the kite to go back home on this thing. And we looked at our boarding passes immediately and noticed we are not sat together yet again. So we went up to the counter and I respectfully said, please, is there any way I can sit next to my wife for this flight? Because if not, I'm going to throw up on whoever you put next to me. So they were very accommodating and they changed the seats. But there is a caveat. Guess who gets to sit next to the emergency exit? And this doesn't terrify me at first because I'm like, oh, cool. So if something happens, I'm first one off the plane. And that came out of my mouth to this poor lady sitting at the counter giving us our tickets. She said, oh, no. if something happens to the plane, then you get to help everybody else off before you get off. No, that's not how this works. First one in, first one out, right? Yeah, that's how it's going to go. Every man for himself when a plane's falling to its doom. But no, I have to help people off. She says, hang on, but there's a catch. I said, oh no, another catch. She said, yes, you get free drinks throughout the flight for being by the emergency exit. This pleases me. I become happier until we get on the plane. Now, mind you, before we got off the cruise ship, I did have a few drinks to lighten my load, so to speak, so that I would not be terrified this time flying. But the plane was delayed, and said drinks wore off. Anxiety returns. And I now know that the drink cart does not come around when the plane is at an incline for fear of rolling that cart into somebody or damaging the plane, which would certainly cause my own demise and that of my beautiful new wife of just a week. So, yeah, I didn't want that, and I'd just have to deal with the terror all on my own. Again, because my wife wanted to sleep. But it's worse this time because now I am sitting directly next to the emergency exit, which I am sure the hatch is going to pop off of, and I'm going to get sucked out of the plane. Yeah, these things went through my head, and I don't know why, it just happened. But anyway, so we are flying back from Miami. The takeoff goes smooth. My wife's sleeping. But as smooth as the flight was into Miami, it was not so smooth going back to Cincinnati. No, turbulence the entire time. I couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom because they kept us in our seatbelts the whole time. Finding out that, these little bumps that I'm feeling are actually us dropping like 200 feet and then rising back up and then dropping 200 feet and rising back up. It's terrifying. It's mortifying. I don't even know how to explain it, how my body thinks or my brain acts. It's just horrible. So I'm sitting there looking around and I'm seeing all the other passengers are calm and sleeping and just playing with kids or whatever and just smiling and laughing and yada, yada, yada. Wait a minute. Let me go back for a second. So when we were boarding the plane, we're getting ready for takeoff. The pilot comes on the intercom and says, I need one person to move forward to balance the weight a little bit better. One person is throwing the weight of the plane off? Holy crap, this is doomed. We're not going to make it. That's all there is to it. But we did. And we're in the air, and all this turbulence is going on and everything. And I'm thinking, okay, some person in the back is just bouncing around and making us fall to our dooms. And this pilot guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And he needed to move two people instead of one. But no. Okay, so we're flying even, and it's just bouncing around a lot. And I see all these people just sitting there calmly, just doing whatever normally they do on flights. And I'm this chaotic ball of nastiness inside of me and screaming to myself, why is nobody freaking praying right now? Because I'm sitting there, going through the Hail Mary and everything, and I'm not a religious person, but I'm going through all of it. I'm going through every religion, just every prayer I can think of, namaste is coming out my mouth and Hail Mary and all that stuff, and it's just chaotic. So I decide I'm going to get my book out, which was at the time Thrawn Alliances. I got my book out. And I started reading, and I got about 4 words in before I could not think anymore. I couldn't even react to what was going on in the book, and I had to finish the flight out, this chaotic ball of nightmare. Yeah, so the flight, it did go off without a hitch. We were flying over Cincinnati Airport, which is called CVG for some reason, and we pass it up. Not just a little bit, a lot. We wind up, I can see Dayton, Ohio, underneath of us, and I'm like, okay, we're like 100 miles out from where we're supposed to be. Hey, dude, turn around. You missed it. It's back there. I could see it. I watched us pass it. And finally, he makes this sharp turn, being the psychotic pilot that he is, and turns back, and we land at CVG. I get off the plane and vow never, ever, ever to get on another plane. Well, It's not really the case, is it? Because there were 2 more times that I had to fly for work, and I was the same way, only this time I didn't have my snoring wife next to me, and I had no one's hand to hold other than some coworkers, and that would have just been weird. Now, when I flew to these conferences and training and stuff for my job, guess what they put me on? The same freaking kite that I was on to Miami. I don't get it. It's my karma. Now, I do want to go to Europe, and I do plan on doing that at some point in my bucket list. That means I will have to fly. And so help me God, if they put me on that kite one more time, going across the Atlantic Ocean, I'm getting off, and I'm going and booking a ticket for a boat. I'm going to sail across the ocean. I don't care about high seas. Those don't bother me. Waves don't bother me. They rock me to sleep. I will ride a boat, and I'll meet my wife over there if she doesn't want to join me, but hopefully she will join me on the boat. But I don't care what kind of ship it is either. It could be a tugboat. It could be a canoe. I don't care. I don't want to fly on that little cigar again. Cigars burn. Think about it. Painful. But anyways, I'm going to shut up now and quit talking about this. I just thought I'd share this story with you guys because it's one of those things that just, I don't know, it's part of my life. It's part of who I am now. I don't like it. I don't like that I can't fly comfortably, but maybe one day I will. So if you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like the video, share it with some friends, and get a good laugh at my own expense. I really don't care. It's kind of funny. And this is Gerald, a Star Wars fanatic, signing off, wishing you all great health, happiness, and peace. Thank you all for watching, and remember, this is the way. And positivity in the Star Wars community and the flying community can be the only way.